We have to sign this, Mitch, right? That's what we
Yeah.
sign? Okay.
What is that?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, Councilmember Hokumer.
Top
That's the
one with your name on it.
of
Okay.
the conflict of
The
interest
one
for the
in-
bond.
No,
issue.
there's somebody one. I've already signed mine. They printed the whole. It's no,
Everybody
that's all
got-
says me.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
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 there's-
I just need
go
one
through
signature
the
per
stack.
person.
Okay, mine is done, Guido. It's right here on my spot.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Excuse me 1 minute.
All right. Well, let's hope we don't get Zoom bombed again at this meeting like we did this morning.
Not twice in one day, Mr. Mayor.
Don't
You
jinx
gotta
it.
admit, it was funny. You should have been there, Yossi. You would have enjoyed it.
What happened? I'm just
We got Zoom bombed by,
About
yeah.
15 high school kids joined our meeting and started cursing everybody out at the EAC.
That's great.
It was fun. It was
Did I ever tell you about the time I was having a Zoom call with my whole family for?
good.
But
Or-
we're live, so
Oh,
be
Whoop,
careful
whoop,
with your stories.
okay. So anyway, I was having Zoom Easter dinner with my family and everybody was remoting in and all of a sudden a guy shows up on our screen and we're like, I thought it was a joke. It wasn't. He was just a hacker and he sat into our dinner to watch our dinner as we were all talking.
How did he get
Nice.
in? How did he get the website?
I don't know. I don't know how they do it, but I guess they just type random numbers when you do like the meeting IDs and then they just pop into meetings. If you don't make it private, they can just jump in. Uh-oh. That was pretty funny.
Are you ready?
I'm ready, Mr. Mayor.
We're
Everybody
missing,
Okay, let's see.
wait, we're
You
missing,
got us all.
Doug's
Oh,
not
crap.
where's Doug?
What are you doing, Doug? Don't you want to tune into the meeting? No, you're not on.
Yeah, you have to go in through your own computer.
Doug's here. He's just not on yet, so we can get started. All right. So this is our regular meeting for Tuesday, February 9th, 2021. It's exactly 6 p.m. So can we have a roll call of the members?
Councilmember Abbott,
Here.
Yeah.
Councilmember Del
Yes, Joe.
Prado,
Here.
Councilmember Hokumer,
Here.
Vice Mayor Kraft. He's here. And Mayor Cordino.
He's here.
A quorum is present,
Here.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay, with that, we'll do, perfect. We'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. So here's our flag, as everybody can see. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty, justice for all. The good thing is I still have the echo, but nobody else can hear. All right, do we have any additions, deletions, or deferrals? Councilmember Abbott, you had something you wanted to add?
Yes. You want to talk about it now or? I do have something
No,
to
let's
add.
just add it and let's do it after the consent agenda. You want
Okay, sure.
to discuss, right? We'll do it under, so your business. What is it?
Sorry? don't
What's
know.
the item, the
The item,
Pinecrest
Councilmember.
City Music Project?
Correct. It's the email that Daniel Solomon wrote to council today requesting a funding change.
For
Okay,
the
perfect.
Pinecrest City
All right,
Music
we'll get that
Project.
and we'll put that under Village Council.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, so third on the list is the consent agenda. Is there anybody that wants to remove anything from our consent agenda to discuss? Seeing none. Do we have a motion on the consent agenda?
I'll move.
Anybody want to second it?
Second.
Okay, a motion is second. And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody
Aye.
opposed? Seeing nobody's opposed, The consent agenda passes. Wow. Oh, agenda order of business. Special presentations, nothing. Ordinances. Let's move to 6, first reading of our ordinance. Mr. Clark.
On first reading, you have an ordinance of the Village of Pinecrest, Florida, amending Chapter 15, Article 1, to amend the definition of litter, provide that animal food shall not be left unattended outside of enclosed fenced areas, and to provide for penalties, providing for severability, conflicts, codification, and an effective date. This is Councilmember Hokumer's item.
Yeah, yesterday. I'll send it to you. Councilmember Hokumer, would you like to?
Sure. So
Explain.
Pinecrest has long had a code that prohibits the placement of food or garbage or any other sort of attractive nuisance that would attract critters. And previously, our code specifically name checked as examples of animals we were trying to avoid attracting: raccoons, foxes, coyotes, that sort of thing. And this is just a tweak to that.
Send your Pinecrest address.
Specifically including
Send to
animals
your Pinecrest email.
as one of the items that can't be left unattended in large quantities. Because we are seeing a problem where people, well-intentioned people, are leaving unattended animal food out and therefore attracting critters, particularly peafowl has become a major issue. And we've had several complaints of people who have neighbors who with probably the best intentions in the world, are leaving animal food out that's attracting hordes of peafowl, which then are very messy. They poo all over the place. They destroy people's yards, et cetera. So this just allows it to be enforced, like the existing prohibition against garbage and food out to attract critters, and gives code enforcement able to stop people from doing that. The flip side of it is, as we've seen, I think, over the past year or two, peafowl have become far more common and are really becoming common, particularly if they decide to roost in great numbers on your house. And we have all sorts of limitations about how we can deal with peafowl. But one of the things that we can do is just not make our neighborhoods more attractive to them than they already are. So I asked the village attorney to draft a couple of tweaks into our existing nuisance ordinance in order to allow staff to enforce that.
Okay, does anybody have any comments on tab 6? Mr. Prado, anything?
I do, because I think, Mayor Cordino, that the desired outcome, right, of this is to reduce the peafowl. But I think as it reads that it may preclude people from, and there are a lot of cat enthusiasts, right, who like to take care of the cat colonies. And so I looked up the SPCA and looked at their position on feed bans, and they don't recommend it. But I do understand that we want to limit peafowl. I just think that this may be a little broad, or I think that we need to explore how we can tailor it so that we aren't curtailing people's ability, if they want to, you know, tend to the cat colonies by trapping, feeding, trapping. What is the word they use? It's trap or feed, trap, sterilize, and then release. Wait, hold on. Let me see what anyway, they don't favor feeding bans for a couple of reasons. One, they don't feel that they feel it's inhumane that those animals somehow have come to rely on people who feed the cats. I think that the cat enthusiasts may find themselves in violation of this ordinance. So I think that we need to just explore how we might tailor it so it only addresses the peafowl and it doesn't penalize people who are legitimately trying to capture feral cats, get them sterilized, and release them back out.
Well, we actually talked about that with the village attorney. And so one of the ways that we dealt with that was by including language, if you notice in 11, that specifically allows the animal food to be left in private spaces or in spaces that are enclosed or gated, and that have the authorization of the person to do so. So if you have, for example, the feral cat colony, which is being tended to behind the carpet store along US 1, that feral cat colony is attended to in the alley, which is gated off behind that carpet store, and access is given to those people to go in there and feed those cats and trap the cats and tend to the feral colony that way. So within some sort of controlled, private, or gated enclosed area, it then becomes perfectly fine. But what we would then avoid is people doing things like, we have cases in Pinecrest of people leaving large containers of animal food on the street in an uncontrolled fashion. And while ideally people who are concerned about the feral cat colonies might hope that that would be feeding a cat colony, in that sort of circumstance, which is what would then be prohibited under this ordinance, you're really feeding a cat that walks by, peafowl, a coyote, raccoons, foxes, and any other sort of critter that decides to eat that food.
I just wanted to point out that we specifically allow people to feed animals if they remain with the food while they're feeding the animals, so that if you put out food for cats, you can make sure that rats or peafowl are not getting into where you're feeding the cats. It's just a matter of leaving it unattended for a period of time, which would allow the other animals that were not the intended recipients of the food to feed on it and be attracted to it.
Miss Abbott, do you have anything on this?
Yeah, I mean, I have a few mixed feelings. I think, I'm just trying to think, when people put food out, okay, so in the ordinance, we allow them to put food out as long as they watch the animals eat it and then they take it away, right? That's how it's written? Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think, well, if you're not familiar with feral cats, they probably won't come out if you're standing around, but as long as the person keeps their eye on it, that would be great. In terms of private, private yardage with a fence, we all know that peafowl can just jump the fence anyway. But I do understand that it is an issue in Pinecrest, and I mean, I think this is a start to try to solve our peafowl issue, and we could try it and see how it goes.
Mr. Kraft, anything on the food?
I like it. I don't think people should be tossing food out in the public. Leave it out there for anything to eat.
We can't hear him.
Nobody can hear you.
We can hear.
Oh, you hear me now? Can you hear me now, Joe?
I can hear you, but I can't. You're muted. You got to unmute.
Get off mute.
Okay. Unmute.
There you
How's
go.
that?
Now you're.
No, I like the ordinance. I don't think people should just be throwing food out in the rights of way or public. If you want to feed something, feed it in your own yard. People shouldn't be throwing lettuce, or I think there's a lot of laws anyway that prohibit feeding, wild animals, or fox around, or coyotes, or coons, or possums. So and if you are going to feed something, stand there and make sure it gets eaten and pick up what isn't eaten. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Okay. Anybody else on the subject?
Mayor Cordino, can I just address it one more time? Yes,
please.
So bear with me. It says, it shall be unlawful to leave unattended animal food in any public space or in any private space unless it is within an enclosed gated area pertinent to a private residence, owned or leased by the person placing or authorizing the placement of animal food at that location. Okay. The person placing the animal food shall not leave the animal food unattended to ensure that it does not attract vermin, raccoons, peafowl, or other nuisance animals. So does this then, the private homeowner who leaves their cat food outside overnight, are they now in violation of this ordinance? Maybe we need to clarify, if it's on your personal property, you're not subject to that little sentence there. Because otherwise, potentially, you're a resident, you feed your dog, and you could face a fine of $50 to $500 for leaving your dog food on the back porch.
Well, if it's enclosed, then the ordinance accepts that. But if it is unenclosed, then it wouldn't. So yeah, if it was in a front yard that didn't have any fencing and you put a bunch of food out there and you left it out there without supervising it to make sure it didn't attract vermin. I mean, if anybody would do that, I don't know if people would do that, but it does, yeah, potentially create that issue. But if it's a fenced area, then you can do it, or
Right,
or otherwise enclosed.
So
So
how,
we would be describing a circumstance in which somebody had a dog or other pet that was roaming loose in an unfenced area and had unattended food left, which was available not only to this supposed pet that was running loose, but all the other animals which were already previously not desirable under our nuisance code. So I think it's a scenario which would not likely happen, considering there are provisions that allow the food to be left in a fenced enclosed space, which is far more likely that someone would be feeding their dog in their enclosed backyard.
Anna, maybe to Shannon's point, maybe if we said, if it's in a covered porch area at the home, because a lot of people feed them right outside their porch, that's acceptable. They might not have a gate around their whole yard, but if they're feeding their cats, their own feral cats right outside their front door over the covered porch, that it still prevents them from running out by the street and throwing out in their front yard, but at least it's by their covered, maybe it could say covered area that's attached to the home. You know what I mean?
See, I think that doesn't solve the problem at all, because in fact, if you've got something like that and it's in an unfenced area, whether it's a covered porch or not, once again, and I don't want this to be specifically about peafowl. We have people, if you watch social media, very concerned about the number of foxes that are around. We now have coyotes, the famous Pinecrest coyote, which is prowling around at night. And so we want to make sure that people are keeping a tight control over these things which attract animals, which are doing what they do, which is living a life out in the open, and they're going to eat whatever is available to them. So I would take the position that, if you want to feed your feral cat colony, you need to do it in your backyard behind a fence under control of you, and not open to whatever fauna might happen upon it, because what it creates is an attractive nuisance. I mean, I think one of the ways that we deal with these sort of systemic problems, and I use the metaphor of petty crime, is that we can't snap our fingers, for example, and do away with car hoppers or other people who might come into our driveways at night and be looking for unlocked doors. And because we can't, we look for ways to make ourselves less attractive to them. So we encourage people to lock their cars, to take their key fobs inside, to put lights out that turn on, if it'll help keep bad actors away from your property. And it seems to me that because we have widespread complaints of coyotes and foxes and peafowl and all sorts of undesirable critters, that it's appropriate to encourage people to feed their pets and other animals in a way which is consistent with making us a less desirable attraction for these animals that exist among us.
Anybody else want to? Anybody else? Ms. Del Prado?
Mayor Cordino, I think if the intended purpose is to limit peafowl, I think that we should just say that. It shall be, you're not allowed to feed the peafowl. I think that the way this reads, it does. The way it reads, potentially any homeowner leaving cat food out for their own pet is subject to a fine. It's just not clear. So at a minimum, I think we need to address that. I understand that there is a peafowl situation. And I do think that there should be a ban on feeding the peafowl. And I think that we should probably have an educational program as well. I think that Coconut Grove just went through this right before the pandemic, and they passed an ordinance saying that they could capture and relocate to some kind of reservation or rescue organization a certain percentage when they get out of control. There's no doubt, though, I think that our residents are not happy with the peafowl situation. And I do think that we have to address it, but I think that we could limit this ordinance to saying that you shall not feed the peafowl.
Okay, I think that there's a lot of undesirable things, right? Like peafowl, toads, iguanas, foxes, coyotes, even a snail. He's probably quick enough to catch on your own, the giant snail, which makes me laugh every time I hear about it. So I was under reading this, I thought, well, this kind of keeps everything under control, right? It's not the indiscriminate. We don't want people, you know what, you see it in more times than you'd want to, where somebody just dumped a bag of cat food on the right of way and animals are eating it. We want to prevent that. I don't think, I don't believe that this is going to hamper anybody feeding their individual pet outside. Now, what I think it's going to do is if there's a neighborhood that is a nuisance and there's an overabundance of cats in somebody's yard that is making a mess, I think it's, it's going to allow us to deal with that in a more appropriate way. Right now, we don't really have a way to deal with it.
So there's still, Joe, people that don't have gates.
Mr. Mayor, remind Councilmember Kraft, we cannot hear him if he doesn't unmute himself.
Doug, no one can hear
You're
you.
still on mute. You got to unmute.
Keeps muting. There are still people, I was saying, that don't have gates, unfortunately, and probably never will for a while. There's quite a few. And then that's why I was suggesting that the covered area outside their front door or their carport is at least gives those people that don't have the gates, and maybe it addresses Shannon's concerns, and I know Katie mentioned it a little bit. It doesn't allow them to throw it out in the street or the public right away or out by their front yard.
Katie, then you.
It does let them feed the cat outside their front door. That's, their overhang or carport. But that's just my thought.
All right, got it. Katie, and then. All right, got it. Katie.
Yeah, to Doug's point, I'm just thinking of a neighbor on the next street over who feeds her cats in the driveway, and it's just cats who she feeds. Might we consider just banning it in public spaces?
Well, I don't like, Katie, I don't like that they can just throw it out in their front yard.
Well, it's not their front yard. Like you said, it's the covered area in front of their front door.
Well, if it was a covered area, like I said, I think a covered area by their front door or wherever that covered area might be next to their home and not out by the street in their yard or out by the front, out by the street.
Okay, Anna, you want to.
Sure. So one of the things that I noticed in the paper copy of the agenda that I have is that one of the changes that we made that we're proposing to make to the existing nuisance ordinance is in the whereas clause in order to address Councilmember Del Prado's concerns about specifically saying we're including peafowl in this. In the second whereas clause, it says whereas raccoons, foxes, peafowl, and other feral and non-native animals. That peafowl was actually added. It was not there in the original ordinance. So we are going out of our way to specifically change this ordinance to make it clear that one of the animals that we're attempting to not encourage is peafowl, and that is new in this ordinance. So that should be in yellow in everybody's text and was inadvertently not highlighted. And the second thing I'll say is that while I have great sympathy for somebody who's feeding their cat on their front porch, I will say that it's actually probably not a particularly good way to manage feeding your cat. If it is actually your cat, then of course you will be getting a rabies shot for the cat. The cat will have been registered with Miami-Dade Animal Services. Now, cats in Miami-Dade are not required to wear a license the way the dogs are, because Animal Services recognizes that cats are extraordinarily good at getting out of collars. But you are required to perform an annual rabies vaccination on your cat. So if somebody's feeding cats on their driveway and they don't have that paperwork, then what they're doing is maintaining a feral cat colony. And we go back to the original premise here, which is, well, it's perfectly acceptable and considered humane in many circles to feed a feral cat colony. It needs to be done in such a way that somebody is supervising that feeding, and so that it doesn't become an attractive nuisance to all of the animals which live among us here in Pinecrest. And that's simply a best practice for anyone who's actually legitimately helping a cat colony.
Mayor Cord, forgive me. Mayor
Yes,
Cord,
Mr. Prado, go ahead.
what if we were to just add here, the person placing animal food in a public space shall not leave the animal food unattended?
Because I think if you're leaving it at the end of your driveway, it creates a false distinction between a public place and a private place. And if somebody's dumping a 5-pound bag of cat food at the end of their driveway, that is as much an attractive nuisance to the animals among us as somebody who's leaving it on the side of the street. And it's literally a 12-inch difference. So I don't think simply saying it has to be on private property solves the problem, because what's happening is people are engaging in these inappropriate storage and feeding practices, which, by the way, are already contemplated as unacceptable under our ordinance, right? So we've already prohibited people from accumulating garbage, from using food. It specifically refers to food. And I think the confusion in terms of our code is that it's been always assumed to be that you can't leave heaps of human food out because it attracts vermin, it attracts coyotes, it attracts raccoons, it attracts critters, it attracts all this stuff, right? So this is a normal standard of not creating an attractive nuisance. But because we have this infestation of peafowl is the thing that really got me thinking about it. But coyotes, for example, are another thing that I've been hearing about fairly recently. In order to make code enforcement have a clearer mandate to work with residents who may be creating this situation for their neighborhood, we wanted to very specifically say, we're including animal food in this problem. If we have animal food left unattended in a place that's open access and is creating a nuisance for these critters, we then have an actionable nuisance under our code. And of course, as we all know, code compliance always, always, always gives everyone the opportunity to cure the violation before anyone is cited or ticketed. I mean, that is standard practice. That is Florida law. You are always given the opportunity to cure the violation. So at no point is a SWAT team of code enforcement officers going to be descending upon some poor little old lady and giving her a $500 fine because she left a can of, chicken by the sea on her front porch. But it is going to give somebody who is creating an ongoing and pervasive nuisance in the neighborhood, the notice that this is an actionable offense, which creates a quality of life problem for the community.
Okay, does anybody what I've heard today is that we're running into two problems: the words enclosed or gated, and Doug's issue with front porch. What if we said in the rear yard or on your front porch instead of enclosed and gated? Are those acceptable amendments to this, or what do you think?
Sure. I mean, I would imagine if somebody wants to leave animal food on their front porch.
Shannon and Katie.
So front porch, that sort of requires a definition.
Mhm.
Why would you
And
say any covered area attached?
enclosed
property.
or covered, or
Or
in the rear
covered.
yard.
Enclosed or covered?
I
Okay.
mean, it could mean right out their back door, that has a little overhang and they leave it right by their back door. They might not have a gate around their home or property, but it's in their backyard and by the back door that's under the underhang. They can't go throw it out to the fence line.
Okay. And then there's one other thing. Right now, it permits it in an enclosed area of a non-residential property as well. So as Councilmember Hochmer said in the initial example, someone who is permitted by the commercial property owner, say in an alley behind Sunnyland, could put food into an enclosed area that was enclosed in such a way that cats could get in, but not peacocks. I think that we would want, I think from what I'm hearing from you is that you would want to limit the exception for a non-enclosed area only to a residence.
Yes, certainly.
Correct. I
Yeah, you
agree.
can't have people throwing food out in the commercial district outside the back door.
Okay. All right, we'll make that change if
I mean,
that's,
I don't know. I haven't heard from Shannon or Katie. Is that okay? And
Oh, that
Anthony,
sounds
Shannon.
great. Yeah, sorry. I know it's hard because I'm not there, but I'm nodding my head. Yes, it sounds great.
That's all right. Shannon's not here either. She's in the other room, so we're struggling with the Zoomish stuff.
I mean, it seems
We're
to
getting it.
address all of Shannon's
We're getting it.
things about people that would be feeding a cat, their own cat, and they don't have a gate around their property. They can still feed their cat right outside their back door that has the 3-foot overhang on their own.
I don't think this is trying to stop somebody from feeding a cat. I think it's trying to stop somebody from feeding tons of cats, right? And then therefore attracting the things that like to eat cats, or you want to attract peacocks. Okay, so
No, I think Anna's point is right on. People shouldn't be throwing a 5-pound bag of food out at the end of the driveway.
all right. So do we have an item? Do we have a motion? Do we have an item of motion?
I'll make a motion with that, with that residential, covered area only it applies to residential only, not commercial. Like Mitch explained, like Mitch said.
Yeah, and I would second, but I would ask the clerk to also remember to highlight the change in the second whereas clause that adds the word peafowl.
Well, mine has it in it. I don't know
See,
why.
mine doesn't.
Oh, mine does.
Mine
Mine
doesn't have the highlight.
Does not. Peafowl is, okay, so do we have a motion?
That's in the,
we have a
Councilmember,
second?
that's in the second whereas clause.
Yes,
And the village attorney, you're going to wordsmith.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll,
All right, you have a motion and a second, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Do this one by one or all together, Guido?
Yeah, let me call the roll, Mr. Mayor. Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
Councilmember Del Prado,
No.
Councilmember Hokumer,
yes.
Vice Mayor Kraft,
Yes.
Mayor Corradino.
Yes. The
Motion
passes.
carries. The ordinance will be on second reading on March 9th.
Okay, great, perfect. So let's go to tab number 7. It's a first reading of another ordinance. Guido?
That's an ordinance of the Village of Pinecrest, Florida, authorizing the borrowing of money and the issuance of debt in an amount not to exceed $5 million for the purposes of financing the acquisition of property and/or refinancing all or a portion of an outstanding loan previously undertaken from the Florida Municipal Loan Council by the Village of Pinecrest, Florida, dated March 1st, 2011, and providing for an effective date.
All right.
Mayor, this
Yossi?
is related to the proposed issuance of debt in the amount of approximately $5 million or amount not to exceed $5 million. And this is first reading. We anticipate the timeline to bring this back to council for consideration and second reading at the main March 9th meeting, at which time you will also be considering the vote on whether or not to finalize the option to purchase the properties that we collectively refer to as the Palermo property, which is located on Kendall Drive between 67th Avenue and 65th Court. We have been involved in the process of finalizing the Phase 1 environmental study and survey work of the property, anticipation of your consideration of that option to purchase agreement for the March 9th. And in preparation of that, this would set the wheels in motion in the event that we do proceed with the purchase of the property during the March 9th meeting, to at some point around the July formally issue the bond that would go to pay or reimburse the village for the cost of the purchase of the property. The purchase of the property and the asking price and the agreed to purchase price is $3,750,000. And what I'm proposing as far as the financing timeline, if we go forward with that purchase, is to pay the $3,750,000 shortly after exercising the option to purchase, but then reimbursing ourselves in July when we issue the actual bond for the cost of $5 million, because I'm proposing and recommending that we also refinance another debt because we can avail ourselves of better interest rates right now, and that would give us a combined savings of about $90,000 for that reissuance and that refinance. So we can combine both things in one. That's why we're talking about up to $5 million bond issuance.
Okay, hey, Councilmember Abbott, do you have any issues with this one?
No, it sounds good to me. Thank you.
Doug, anything?
No.
Anna? Shan?
No, I like the savings on the 90. No.
Okay, well, that made it simple. Guido, I haven't asked for any public comment. Do we have anyone from the public that wants to speak about this item?
Not on this item, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Okay. We have a motion?
I'll move.
We have a motion. Second.
I'll second.
Motion and a second.
Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
Mr. Clerk?
Councilmember Del Prado,
Yes.
Councilmember Hokumer,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kraft,
Yes.
Mayor Cordino.
Yes.
Motion
Yes.
carries. This ordinance will be on second reading on March 9th.
Okay, perfect. Let's move to number 7, reports and recommendations. Move to number 7, reports and recommendations. Village Council, coronavirus pandemic. I have nothing to report this month. So let's go to Katie. You had an item.
Yes. Today, Daniel Solomon emailed
Pressed.
all. Oh, sorry, there's a
City-
villain. Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Sorry, there was a delay.
I'm sorry.
Today, Daniel Solomon emailed council about the Pinecrest City Music Project. The funding that we previously allocated, as you recall, in the past, we've given them monies for their Sprouts program for their transportation. But as you know, since COVID, they haven't been able to meet and practice in public. So he was requesting from council that we would consider reallocating those funds to our Arts Fest, which hopefully you all will be able to attend. It's in March and it's at Pinecrest Gardens. It's bringing together K-12 students in the community of all abilities in visual and performing arts. So the ask is to consider the previously approved funds for that program, instead of being used for transportation, which is not happening, to be used for the program's event in March.
Shannon, anything on that?
Nope. Sounds good.
Anybody else? Doug?
No, sounds lovely. I'll move.
Sounds good to me.
I'll
Yeah.
second.
Yeah, I have no problem with it. It's a good idea.
Okay, thank you. Do we need a vote officially?
You have a motion and a second, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, we need to vote
Yeah, I moved
on
and,
this, not a consensus item.
yeah.
Oh, we do. We have a motion, and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
I don't know
Nope,
if I'm
seeing
allowed
none,
to
motion
vote.
passes unanimously.
But wait, excuse, I don't know if I'm allowed to vote. Am I allowed to
Yes,
vote
you
because
are.
I'm now on their board? Yes?
The vote would authorize the payment of funds to a board on which you sit.
Yeah.
No, you should not. Vote on.
Okay, I recuse myself.
Well, now I changed my mind.
Never mind. We all say no. Pass. 4-0.
Thank
All right,
you.
perfect. Okay, good job. Anything else? So we'll go to the village manager's report.
Are there any questions on my report? There was one thing of note that I just wanted to point out for Vice Mayor Kraft, that we did contact the county and they advised that the shared use path that's going to be constructed on 136th Street is expected, construction is expected to commence in 4 to 6 weeks. Is what they're,
Well, what about the bridge?
4 to 6 weeks. That's all I know.
So the bridge is the same.
They consider that all one big project, so.
So are we gonna put something out then? Do they know let's say it starts in 4 weeks. Do they know when the bridge will close?
They have not provided any other information than a 2-sentence paragraph that said that they would be
So
starting.
they-
I went through the
It needs to
process
give
of the
people
mayor.
4-week notice maybe that the bridge is gonna close next month?
All I know is they're anticipating commencement of project 4 to 6 weeks from now, barring no unforeseen other
Do you
issues.
think it's smart then, Yossi, maybe we put something out saying the county has given us a 4 to 6 week?
I would wait till
potential
it's
start-
closer. I would wait till it's closer to the date, like,
Yeah.
give, 10 to 14 day advance notice. Because knowing the county, it's a moving target.
Can I
I
ask?
did think the bridge was the summertime. Wasn't the bridge supposed to be over the summer when school was out? I thought I had read that.
I don't know. I would just
What
give
they said,
heads up.
I asked for an update from the office of the mayor regarding that project, the bike path and bridge project, and all that we got back was 2 sentences worth of notice that they're anticipating breaking ground within 4 to 6 weeks. That's it.
Anna, did you have something?
Yeah, will they have to pull any permits from our Public Works Department, just as a matter of course?
No, because it's a county road. So they don't have to do anything. And all the facilities are within county right of way.
Yeah, I
So
almost-
Ann, do you think that maybe, I don't know, I'm asking everybody, do you think that maybe we should say to the people that can give them a 4 weeks notice that it could potentially start in 4 weeks, not for the path so much, but beware that the bridge could start in the next couple of months and it might entail closing the bridge for a period of time.
I think we ought to do? I think we ought to supplement the county's communication strategy. We're going to get the calls anyway, no matter what, but I don't want to get too far into this and own the county's project. This is
Yeah,
a
I would
county
do that.
project. They need to do it the way they need to do it. It's not our project. I don't think we should be, unless they ask, stepping on their public engagement or their notifications. I think what we need to do is press on the county to do it right, because it's not our project.
No, but I have to say, I do agree with Doug. It's not our project, but it is our residents who are gonna be highly upset if one day they just come in and put a do not cross across the
No, I
bridge.
agree. What we need to do is supplement their. I think what we need to do is supplement their with their communication strategy. Let's wait till I think we need to wait till it gets a little bit closer to us because right. I think my understanding of this project, it was supposed to start in late October. The last I had visited it. Now they're talking. I don't even know what's 4 to 6 weeks in county time. Who knows, right? It may not even be on the 5-year work program as far as we know. So, then I think we can supplement their communications. But if we get too far ahead of them and start communicating about this project, who knows if it's even going to happen, right? I mean, so
Yeah, my concern is to cry wolf because the county constantly says that they're going to start this project and then
They don't.
4 months, 5 months goes by and they don't do it. So if we get everybody hot and bothered, and then nothing happens in 4 to 6 weeks, eventually people are going to stop paying attention to us and we look like the people who are mismanaging the county project. So I think maybe the strategy is for our staff to go to the county staff and say, as a matter of professional courtesy, please give us 2 to 4 weeks notice when you are actually ready to break ground and you have shovels in the backs of the trucks so that we can piggyback whatever you're communicating to the community about the project and make sure that we're discussing the same talking points, because as we know, it's 2 projects. It's the multi-use path and the bridge.
And we're only concerned about the bridge.
We're really concerned about the bridge in the sense that it's, the multi-use path is on the south side of the street, but they seem to have commingled these 2 projects together, even though they're from completely separate funding sources. So who knows what they're talking about?
So I think what we got to be cautious of is not owning this project. It's not our project. We can't make it happen faster. We can't make it happen slower. We can't do anything with this project. I don't think we want to own the communication strategy on this project. They're going to do it. We've seen what happens when they do projects. We've seen what happens when they do projects. Let own this project.
I think that's smart.
thing.
Just when they tell us the bridge will
Well, yeah, let's
close,
echo there.
hey, the bridge is closing.
We can reach our citizens with their communications, but I don't want to be. We don't need our public works director calls on their project. We're getting the calls on their project, but we can't do anything about it. Right? We're already dealing with the whatever's happening on 8th Street with Gulliver. It's the county. The county's dealing with this road. The county's dealing with this road, and we're getting the calls. So it's a pain. Shannon, you want to say anything on this one?
No, I'm just catching up on this one. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Hey, Yossi, can you go over the Palermo property option to purchase real quick?
The actual agreement or just what we're doing? What did you want me to go over?
Can you give us an explanation of where we are in the process and if we were to come to a conclusion on it, how that would be and when it would be?
Sure. Okay, so we have exercised what's called a residential contract for sale and purchase, which is subject to council ratification, which is anticipated to come before you on March 9th, which will be the next council meeting. Presently, we are anticipating that this purchase will be to preserve green space, open green space. We're not anticipating doing anything to the property if council were to purchase it that involves more than just demolition of the existing structures on site. I can tell you from preliminary reports from the environmental phase 1 study that the only issues of concern they have found on the property involve mold within the existing structures, which obviously we would demolish. And then there's a well on the property, an existing like wishing well that has some garbage and stuff thrown down there. So we would have to figure out what to do with that well, whether we cap it or keep it as a feature, we'll deal with that. But that really would be the only issue of concern left for us to deal with once we demolish those 2 structures. We have started putting out information through e-news on there's something going to be coming out in the Sun that hits homes right before that vote on the 9th will occur. I know some of the council members have also independently been putting out information to residents that live in that area just to get the word out. And I have gotten some feedback from people that obviously listen to our meetings, answered some questions, but nothing that would raise great concern. The timeline, if council were to go forward with the option to purchase and the way that it's written in the contract, it provides a timeline that we would go ahead and close on the property by, I believe, April 15th, which is why I was mentioning we would front the cost out of our coffers. We feel comfortable financially, we can do that out of reserves. And then we would replenish the village's coffers in July when we would reissue a new bond and refinance the old bond that we were talking about for some savings. As far as following that, if everything goes in that order, we would likely commence during the next budget year, hiring a landscape architect and do some master planning work for what that property may look like in the future. That process could take, upwards of a year. So we don't anticipate actually doing anything and developing that property until likely 2-3 years from now, when we retire another bond that would be coming up, and then freeing up some money then to do some, whatever it is that council and the community wants to do on that property ultimately.
So the long and short of it is that in our goal over the years, we've always been looking to, should the right opportunity present itself, and an opportunity presented itself with this one. We've got into negotiations with the property owner. That we've made an offer, and now we're going through our due diligence. So as these things would be, they don't take necessarily months and months and months like regular governmental stuff would take. This can happen relatively quickly in the span of a couple of months. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of it, that the community was watching it. We're putting the word out in the regular ways through our social media and our contacts. Definitely don't want to surprise anybody with this, but then again, it's not something that we can necessarily wait. It's in accordance with all of the planning we've been doing for decades now. I believe we looked at any number of properties. We've got the money. There'll be no need to go through any extraordinary measures to raise money. And so we can afford it. And we do take a nice, valuable piece of property and put it into the village parks account. Anybody have any questions or comments on that?
Well, I
Anna?
will share that I got an email from one of the members of the Swan Lake HOA who told me that he'd been talking to the HOA that represents Sutton Place, Swan Lake, and that whole crew, and they were all very pleased with the idea. And they very much supported the purchase, and simply wanted us to know that when we did get to the point where we were going to be doing visioning or some sort of charrette to think about some sort of future use for the green space, that they'd like to be invited to it. And I assured them that they would be. But overall, I've gotten in the past 2 weeks, 10 emails from different people about the idea, all of which were unsolicited, positive feedback on the idea of purchasing the property. So I think there's general consensus that it's a good thing for the town.
Perfect. Katie?
I too have only heard positive things from people in the neighborhood, and especially considering what the alternatives could have been in that space. I have a question, what we're going to do with the space while we let it sit, because I understand we kind of did this with Flagler Grove and we let it sit. Do we fence it in? Do we let people go in? How is that handled?
I would leave it open and allow people to just use it as open space, as long as there's no issues of, liability or anything. If people want to go out there, it's just going to be green grass. They can use it. It would be fine.
So we would be tearing down the structures, which are, everybody acknowledges, in pretty bad shape.
Right.
Cutting the grass and trimming the trees. That
Correct.
would be, and it would just be passive, green, open space.
Space for now. Yeah.
Shannon, anything on this one?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right, Doug,
Unmute.
you're muted.
No, I like the idea too. I don't think that we should just stop. There are probably a few other properties. We should still look forward to purchasing.
We do
We're
have,
recording this, right?
yeah, there's,
This is an historic
Okay.
conversation,
I just want to
including
say,
historic pro-bond votes from Councilman.
just don't.
I just want everyone to take note of this.
I would recite the movie Far and Away. Get the land.
All right. Okay, so we don't need to vote on that. That vote will be coming up in March.
correct.
Anybody else got any comments on the manager's communique to council? Seeing none, we'll move on to the report from the village clerk.
Mr. Mayor, just real quickly, under your consent agenda tonight, you approved a proposal to upgrade the AV equipment in the council chamber. I've been working with a consultant who's doing similar work for the city of Aventura. I'm confident that doing that is going to help us address some of these technical issues we've had to endure with these hybrid meetings. There is a 4 to 6 week-ish delay on a lot of this equipment. So as soon as we get a purchase order in with the vendor, they'll start to order all the equipment, but it still might be another couple of months. But we're making progress. The system in the chamber will be integrated with teleconferencing apps like Zoom. So it will address some of the issues like we've had this evening on some of the echo and things like that, plus bring us into the 21st century. A lot of this equipment is still original to when the chamber was first built in 2004. And as we know with technology, a lot of this equipment changes pretty fast. So we're making progress, but it still might be another couple of months, but we're on it.
Thank you.
Good. I have a feeling we'll still be in the situation for a couple months, so we'll definitely need it. Report from the village attorney.
I don't have anything new to report at this time.
Excellent. Thank you. Let's move to resolutions, tab 9.
That is a resolution of the Village of Pinecrest, Florida, granting a petition to permanently discontinue a portion of the eastern public right-of-way of Southwest 69th Avenue, lying north of Southwest 94th Street, providing for continuation of certain existing right-of-way improvements, providing for recording, and providing for an effective date. This item was deferred from your January 12th meeting, and this item is a public hearing, Mr. Mayor. I do have one member of the public that registered to speak on this item.
Okay, that's great.
Would you like to hear from them now, or?
Do you want to handle a report from staff, or how would we go?
It's up to you,
about it,
Mayor.
yeah.
I can give a report and then you can open up for,
I think, does everybody understand it? Do they need a staff report? Raise your hand if you need a staff report. Seeing none, you want to open up the public hearing? We'll do that.
So Mr. Rhoda signed up to speak on this item, and he's on the call with you now.
Great. Welcome. Could you state your name and address, please?
Mr. Rhoda, can you hear us?
I'm sorry, how about now? Is that better?
Yes, sir. You're on with the village
Perfect.
council.
All right. Great, thanks. Hi, Paul Rhoda, 9301 Southwest 69th Avenue, Pinecrest 33156.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I've been following this issue for a while now. So my property is just, if you're looking at Exhibit A, it's just north of the one they're asking for the vacancy. And so I'm okay with the vacancy. I don't have a problem with that. The questions that I have, and I sent them earlier, has to do with the west side of those properties. So if you're looking at Exhibit A, that lot 6, block 5, that is zoned actually, can be split up. So, and let me just give you a little background. So my parents, I bought this house from my parents in 2001, and they bought it in 1970. So we've lived in Pinecrest for a long time now, and we really do enjoy, the trees, the coyotes. We're not a big peafowl person, but in fact, we probably don't like them at all. But so where we live, is very secluded. It's right now, it's a dead end, 1/2 lane, and pretty much all the neighbors, we get very little traffic. If we do, we get, the construction guy who's lost, or the Amazon truck that backs over a mailbox, kind of traffic. So my question then is, on those properties to the west who are zoned, they can be split up. And so I would love it that, that the lanes never went through again. We just ended like we're doing now. But obviously they own property. They're entitled to do what they want with their property. And if it is zoned able to be split, then they're going to pave that road through. And so my question is, what, I was told that that you guys weren't going to allow that to happen if they don't have double lanes. So, I mean, just a lot of confusion. I mean, on my property, my 25 feet has never been dedicated. And so I'm not sure about my side, but I am worried about what are they going to do when they split up those properties?
Ms. Manager, do you want to answer those questions if you can?
Well, the unsimple answer is we don't know. Ultimately, at the time, if a person were to come to petition to council to allow the splitting of the lot, they would have to present a proposal that would provide for egress to those split lots, whether or not at that time when council considers that they would be inclined to open up the entire road to be a through street that would connect 92nd to 94th. It would be substandard, substandard road, as you mentioned. Your section, your side of the 25 feet is not dedicated public right of way. We're looking to vacate Dr. Geller's and Dr. Epstein's 25, the same equidistant side of their property. So you would be left with what would amount to be a 1-lane substandard road. So whether or not council opens that up to be a through street, if it were ever a through street, my recommendation would be a 1-way street. I don't know that that would be the solution, but that would be the only option if they were to make it a through to connect the 92nd to 94th. The other option would be that they would provide access. It would be a dead end access either from 94th to those properties or from 92nd to those properties. Either way, council would have those options to consider at that time.
Okay, that's pretty much what I thought you guys would say.
Okay.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
No, sir.
Okay, any questions from the council?
Oh, one more question. Can I have one more thing? So
Yes, sir, go ahead.
what happens now? Are they permitted now with that fencing, or do they need to go back and get full permits to? Because I'm pretty sure those, I'm just saying, I'm not sure a lot of permits have been pulled. So is there like a formality now that you're vacating it, and now they have to come in and do a formal spiking of property lines? And
correct. There's a special magistrate order to bring the property into compliance, which is part of the reason this is happening. So in the course of their doing that, there will be permits pulled and it's, and then action taken accordingly to deal with all those issues.
Right, because I hadn't seen any stakes in the ground as far as, okay. Thanks a lot, I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks for being here. You're one of our
You guys
few
look wonderful, by the
visitors
way,
these
all of
days.
you. You
Thank
look
you.
great.
Thank you. Any questions from the council? Shannon, anything?
Nope, I think I'm fair. Thank you.
No, I mean, it's complicated, but we've had so many conversations
Hannah?
about it with staff. It's pretty straightforward. I just don't want anybody watching the meeting to think we're not asking questions because we haven't thought it through. We've had so many questions about this, I think, answered by staff and by the village attorney, that at this point, we don't have much more to say. So that's why the conversation isn't more active.
Yossi, do we know the lots? They're over an acre in a half-acre district. Is that true? You're on mute.
You're muted.
Yeah, the one that they're referring to that's north of the Ruffner property, which is just west of the Geller property, can be split. Originally, when we were first thinking of vacating, we were going to vacate the entire right of way, but then Mr. Tomazi reconsidered last minute that he might want to split the lot. And so we were not able to vacate both sides of the right of way there. But so we'll see what happens. But yeah, they can definitely petition council for that at some point in the future.
Without,
Okay.
without,
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, without getting into without getting into unnecessarily technical language, I'll just point out that you're not formally vacating a right of way because this right of way wasn't platted. You are discontinuing your use, which has the effect of allowing the portion of right of way that you're discontinuing to revert to the adjacent owner.
Thank you, Mitch.
We're just giving them
Understood.
back the deed, right?
Yeah, yes,
We did it
exactly.
to us, correct?
Exactly how it is. It's a deed that
Yeah,
we
they
yeah.
gave us half of the right of way. It goes back to them, whomever, that half goes back to that property. Okay, so do we have a motion?
I'll move.
Second?
Jinx, second.
All right, motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Aye. Anybody? All right, motion passes. We'll go to tab 10.
That's a resolution of the Village of Pinecrest, Florida, authorizing the village manager to execute an easement agreement with Gulliver Prep School, providing for an effective date.
Mr. Mayor, this is pretty simple situation. We had some large trees that were in the way of where sidewalk would have gone. And so we worked out a deal with Gulliver where they provided us an easement for the sidewalk on their property so that we can work around the existing mature trees.
Okay. Any questions on this one? Seeing none, do we have anybody from the public here that wants to? Seeing
No one
none,
from the
do we have
public.
anybody from the public?
No one from the public, Mr. Mayor, but there is staff on the call if there were questions from council.
Okay, I don't think there's any questions. It's pretty self-explanatory. Right? So do we have a motion on this one?
I'll move.
All right, Mr. Prado motion. Anybody want a second?
I'll second.
Anna seconded. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Seeing nobody's opposed, that one passes. All right. Who would have thought the peacock thing would have been the hardest one? But
Peacocks and
let's see, we got to get
I
here
knew
first.
it.
Let's go to
Predicted
tab
that.
11.
Next item, Mr. Mayor, is a resolution of the Village of Pinecrest, Florida, supplementing ordinance number 2020-5 enacted on October 13th, 2020, which authorized the borrowing of money, authorizing the issuance of its $7,921,446.45 capital improvement revenue note series 2021A for the purpose of financing the construction and acquisition of certain capital projects as more fully described herein, authorizing the negotiated sale of such notes to Sterling National Bank pursuant to the terms and conditions of a loan agreement by and among the Florida Municipal Loan Council, the Village of Pinecrest, Florida, and Sterling National Bank, approving the form of and authorizing the execution and delivery of the loan agreement, making certain other covenants and agreements in connection with the issuance of such note, and providing for an effective date.
Yossi?
Mr. Mayor, I would recommend approval of the resolution, which authorizes the issuance and sale of the 7.9, approximately 7.9 capital improvement revenue note to Sterling National Bank. They were the low, they provided the most attractive rate at 2.22%, with prepayment provisions for a 20-year loan. And based on the village's financial advisor's review of all the proposals that were received as a result of the RFP, that is their recommendation.
Okay. Any questions from the council at this time? Seeing none, is there anybody from the public that we have in the waiting room? Seeing none, is we have in the waiting room?
No, Mr. Mayor, no one from the public, but likewise, staff is also available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, no questions, right? Seeing none, do we have a motion?
I'll move.
We have a motion and a second. Anybody? Any second from Katie Abbott. All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?
Nay.
One opposed. Okay. Motion passed. Okay. Motion passed.
Mr. Mayor,
Passes 4-1.
on
That
this
concludes-
item,
Yes, sir.
everyone on the dais, actually, I think Councilmember Del Prado is holding it up. Thank you for the prop. As part of this bond issuance, bond council requires that each council member sign that document, and I'll collect those at the end of the meeting. Councilmember Abbott will send you yours, and if you could sign it electronically for us, that'd be fine.
No
It's just a
problem.
conflict of interest. Sorry,
Thank
you.
conflict of interest saying. that
Yes,
you-
Yossi, do you want to?
Mr. Mayor,
Bob?
there is an issue that I wanted to just ask council how you want to proceed. Would, you know how we're looking at redoing some of the land development regulations, and Steve and I have already been working on draft language for some of the land development regulations. Would you be open to doing a zoning in progress? Because we are getting applications that may come in or that are coming in that may be impacted by some of the staff recommendations that we're anticipating making to council within the next month. And I'm just trying to keep tabs on that. I'd hate for something to come in when we're getting close to potentially changing some of the land development regulations. Specifically, what I'm talking about is signage regulation for the US 1 corridor. So one of the suggestions Deputy City Village Attorney had made was that I asked for a zoning in progress. Mitch, I don't know if Chad commented to you about that discussion. You're on mute.
We did not discuss having calling for a zoning in progress tonight, but you can certainly do that. You can declare zoning in progress with respect to that item if you like, and the effect of that is to put out all potential applicants on notice that there is going to be a zoning change and that they will be subject to it.
So the zoning in progress, if we were to pass it tonight, we need any special advertising requirements for something like that to happen right now in this meeting?
No.
You can make a declaration of zoning in progress at any meeting when you make a decision that you're considering a zoning change that could affect surrounding property. And if no one has applied under the old zoning, then the zoning in progress would apply to them. And that's,
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, can I be
Anna?
clear exactly what we're declaring zoning in progress on? I mean, it's an awfully broad statement
right.
on the US 1 corridor. We're not throwing the gates open. What are we declaring zoning in progress on?
Well, there's language that's being currently drafted that will begin to implement the US 1 vision plan. Some of it involves changes to the sign code moving more towards monument size signage. Right now, the sign code allows for signs that can be as tall as 30 feet, and we're bringing that considerably lower. There's going to be potentially changes to the land development code, or at least council is going to be considering changes to the land development code that would have an impact on use. Because if you recall, the US1 vision plan calls for mixed use and different densities potentially. So there's a lot of things that we're going to be talking about in workshop over the next several months that, if adopted, would have an impact on any type of commercial development that's coming through. And I wanted to avoid, I can tell you we're seeing proposed things that would not be based on at least our drafts regulations as they stand right now would be in conflict with those draft regulations, but be in compliance with the existing code. And so it's difficult when staff is going to take a position to not approve something that would otherwise be available to them. So those are the kinds of issues I want to avoid. And if we call it a zoning in progress, it'll give us a little protection. It doesn't mean that we're tied to anything. Council will still have time to deliberate on any changes and may choose not to make any changes, and then things would proceed accordingly. It's just putting them on notice.
So what this means is the applicant can potentially not submit an action under the current code, and then if they get approved before we change the code, what happens? Or they can't be approved. You're
Sorry,
muted.
Mitch, you're muted.
Sorry. Once you've declared zoning in progress, you can essentially hold them up until after you've approved your code change.
Okay. All right, I have no problem with that. If staff needs it and thinks it's going to be convenient and help us along our way, I'm fine with it.
I'm fine with it too.
You need anything any more than that? Doug, you okay with it?
Yeah.
Shannon?
So a
right.
motion to declare zoning in progress as to the potential zoning changes that Yossi just enumerated is in order.
All right, who wants to make the motion?
I'll move it to declare zoning in progress on all the things that Yossi just listed extensively in her comments.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
Anybody
But
want?
before you approve it, Mayor, I know it's a mere formality, but since it wasn't advertised, you should call for a public hearing.
Okay, that's a good idea. Let's open the public hearing.
No one's here, Mr. Mayor.
No, nobody from the public. Okay, so we're going to close the public hearing, and all in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Nobody's opposed. Okay, so that fella passes. Good.
Just one clarification, Mr. Mayor. That relates strictly to the US 1 corridor.
It should relate strictly to the proposed zoning changes that the manager discussed with respect to the US 1 corridor.
US 1 corridor. Land development regulations affecting US 1 corridor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And with that, we have nothing for planning. We have a work in AM, and the next council meeting is at Ms. Del Prado. Would you do the honor?
Oh, yes, I
A motion to adjourn.
move to adjourn.
Okay, there we go. Somebody's got a second. All right, we're adjourned. Thanks, guys. Everybody did great.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Happy
See you
Valentine's
later.
Day.
Happy Valentine's.
Valentine's.